today's podcast is called The Power of Coaching. I have had the privilege of working with some amazing people over the years, and often people know I've worked with Olympic champions, blah, 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 top executives, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? The people I've spent most time working with are just people just like you and me, who also want to change. And many of these people have achieved much more than turning a business into a multi-million pound business or won Olympic gold medals. I'm not belittling those people, but some people in life have overcome serious adversity. And what you're going to be hearing from today is a lady called Kate Carruth, who has conquered cancer, has lost 6 stone in weight. If you're listening to this in America, 6 stone, that's a lot. Just 6 times 14, that's a lot of pounds. And this is someone who's found peace in themselves as they've really gone to work on creating the life they want. A great life doesn't happen by chance, it happens by design. So get ready for another inspirational podcast with an amazing interview with the awesome Kate Carruth. Hi, it's Pete Coen here, and welcome to the My 365 podcast series. I'm delighted that my guest, definitely my guest, is the amazing Kate Carruth. And Kate, how are you?
I'm very well today, thank you, Pete.
Talk you so much for joining me. And this is going to be a very interesting podcast because often when I talk about the impact that coaching can have on people's lives, I'm just talking about it. Obviously, we have lots of testimonials, but it's also really nice to sit opposite someone who I've had the real privilege of helping on their journey. Yeah. So you are someone who has lost 6 stone in weight.
Yep.
You've conquered cancer.
Yep.
You've really turned your life around and found the career of your dreams, right?
Yeah, I guess that's a fair summary, yeah.
But I suppose if someone's watching this and might think, well, I'd like just one of those, especially if they were misfortunate or unfortunate enough to become sick, to be well again.
Yeah.
Where should we start? I mean, tell us about you. Let's start off with, how did you first come across Pete Coen?
How did I come across Pete Coen? I joined a gym probably 5 or 6 years ago. So I joined a gym, and as part of the package, they had 3 months to your weight loss guru, which was your previous weight loss program. And it was a 3-month thing. I can remember I looked at the sort of the blurb that went with it and was going, Pete Coen, never heard of him. There was a lot about GMTV and LifeCare, and I'd never heard of you. So I Googled you, and up on YouTube came the video of you doing the piece of work with the $50 bill, screwing it up, and your value hasn't changed. And I sat there with my mouth open, because I'd never had that perspective before, and it was a completely different way of looking at who I was and my self-worth. Mm-hmm. And I was so blown away that I signed up to the Weight Loss Guru program, and it was the first thing I'd ever done that wasn't a diet, that wasn't a scheme, that I just had to follow the rules, and then once the rules were over, then I'd just go back to where I was. So it was the first time I'd ever come across coaching really as that way of making you change mindset. Yeah. So that was where I came across you. And that was where the weight loss journey really started. So tell us in a nutshell, what has coaching done for you? What has the whole My 365 experience done for you? What has My 365 done for me? So there are, you mentioned them earlier, there's 3 big ticket items for me. And they're all actually it's not so much about the doing as it is about the mindset around the doing. So the first really big thing that happened for me was getting healthy.
Yes.
So yes, I lost 6 stone in weight, but it's not actually about the weight loss. It's about it didn't come back, which is the big thing, because I've lost weight before, like many people, but it didn't come back because what happened was I didn't go on a diet. I changed my mindset. I focus on being healthy, eating healthy, natural foods, all of that sort of philosophy around food, rather than it being, this is the diet I am on. Yes. So that was the first thing. The second thing that coaching did for me, and that My 365 did for me, was giving me the understanding of my purpose, and the realization that not only was it something that I wanted to do, but something I could actually do. Yes. So I quit my job, and I had started my own business. And then the third thing that I did, which was the piece that came last, was I overcame a long-standing, I don't quite know how to describe it, I was hanging on to my experience of having had cancer. And then suddenly I was able to just break through, and it ceased to be this burden that was holding me back and that was in my mind the whole time.
So it seems like shifts, when you talk about what has happened,
yeah.
It looks like you've made a number of shifts in your brain, shifts around weight, shifts around career, and probably the biggest shift I would imagine is around cancer. Now, I've never had cancer, but obviously I know a number of people who have, and I've always been curious, how do you make that shift in terms of not living in fear that what happened could come back again?
Yeah.
Can you tell me, how does someone make that shift? Do you know?
I don't know how it happened. In one sense, I don't know how to describe how it happened. I mean, it's almost about, you need to, for someone who's not gone through cancer themselves, there's something about helping you understand what's really going on for someone who's had that experience. So I had breast cancer. I was diagnosed with breast cancer. It was a relatively unaggressive form. So the statistics say that the chances of recovery are good. And I had the treatment, and I went through all of that. And then the treatment ends, and you're thinking to yourself, or everyone around you is thinking, well, that's done. It's over. You've fixed that. You've solved that problem. And what's going on in your head is, I don't trust my body anymore. It's betrayed me. You're still actually taking a load of drugs, which are destabilising what's going on in your head and your mind and your body. My hormones were completely out of kilter because of what was going on. And the whole time you're living with that. And cancer becomes a part of who you are because it's such a huge shift in terms of what's gone on for you. And it stays with you, and you can't forget it because anniversaries keep coming up. The day I first noticed the lump, the day I first went for a mammogram, the day I was diagnosed. It's even harder when, for me, I was diagnosed on my birthday. You can't forget that. So every time one of those anniversaries comes up, that little grey cloud pops up in your head again.
So when you say it pops up in your head, it sounds like you're almost referring to as if everyone has that. Now, I think that's obviously quite dangerous when we think everyone thinks that way. But I actually imagine that a large amount of people who have gone through what you have gone through have a very similar experience.
That's what I've spoken to a lot of people about it. One of the things I did, because I wanted to make something meaningful out of my experience, was I started a support group in the area. And I talked to all of all women, as it happens, who've come to me through that support group, and their experience seems to be the same.
Yeah.
The length of time they go through that, it differs. So some people it's a couple of years and then they'll just go, you know what, that's past, and they'll shove it into the past and it becomes history. For others it goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
And the level to which
but it's still a choice though, isn't it? Ultimately,
it's ultimately a choice, but you don't recognise it as a choice.
Yeah.
When you're going through treatment, you feel you have very few choices. It's very much a treadmill process. This is when you show up for chemo, this is when you show up for radiotherapy, here's the drugs you have to take. So there's a powerlessness about treatment. Yeah. And of course you take that powerlessness with you throughout the rest of the experience.
So what about now? What's it... how do you feel now?
So the thing that's different, cancer is still something that happened to me, it's still a part of my life. It's not a case of you forget it, but just over I suppose about 18 months ago, I can't explain why, but I suddenly thought, you know what, I'm not going to let this dominate me anymore. I've had enough of that. It's past, I'm free of it. And it was 11 years from diagnosis to that point.
Yes.
But it was literally a split second. And I can remember where I was because I was actually walking through the town, and I sat down on a park bench and I filmed a video straight away, straight into the My365 group to say, guys, this has just happened and I'm really excited. And I just felt enough.
Yeah.
I don't want to let that. I suppose it's to do with, I really became aware of what it was doing to me. And I felt, I don't want that anymore.
Yeah.
And it was all of the things that you've been teaching through My365 around, first of all, be aware, tune in, listen, understand, be curious.
Is it possible that something like cancer can actually be an opportunity for people to address a few fundamental things which I think affect all of us, which is living in fear, because I think most people live in fear anyway, regardless of cancer, plus also living in the fact that most of us are very self-destructive inside our head. I mean, obviously I'm relating this to my experience of my wife, who had a very aggressive form of cancer and didn't think of the future, didn't really picture a future because she just didn't want to die. We dealt with that whole situation a lot through humour, and obviously me thinking there was a solution to the situation that we were in. But do you feel that cancer's almost been a bit of a blessing for you in some way?
There are lots of positives that came out of it. From in that very first period, doing things that I'd been procrastinating about. I'd always wanted to walk on Hadrian's Wall and I'd never done it. So I made sure I did it. I wanted to get to Egypt before I was 40. I was 39 when I was diagnosed. I had my 40th birthday in Egypt because I wanted to make sure I'd done it.
So you used it in a...
Yeah, because I mean, it's a bit of a trite saying, life is too short. But you know what? When something like that happens, you realise it really is. Yeah. And you go and do the things that you want to do.
Yeah. So tell me, what was it like being you before you came across My365?
Not great. Not a great place. I didn't value myself. I hated how I looked in the mirror. I'd yo-yo dieted for years. I was doing a job which I was good at, but wasn't really fulfilling me anymore. There was a sense of kind of futility in what I was doing. I worked in a big industry, and I was a management consultant, so I was implementing projects, and there's always that sense of, they're not really going to do this. This isn't really going to work. I hated being part of the sales process because there was that not really believing in what I was doing. And all of that was there. And actually when I came across My365, so I was already aware of you through the weight loss piece, but then My365 came on my radar, I mean, probably now, almost exactly 3 years ago. And at the time, I was on sabbatical from work because I was completely burnt out. I was mentally, physically exhausted. My health was not in the best place because I'd kind of lost the plot with health. And it came back into my life. And almost the very first thing you were doing in that week, probably the week after I think it was, or 2 weeks after, was the topic of purpose. And it was massively challenging because you're asking these really fundamental questions like, what are you here for? And I had no idea what I was there for anymore because I didn't feel like I was making progress. But by about the middle of the week, you asked a really important question, which was, again, one of those shifts. And you said, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? And I thought, I'd quit my job, I'd be a writer. And I'd always wanted to be a writer. Since I was tiny, I'd wanted to be a writer.
Well, when you said that, I heard that and it registered in my mind. Because I think there's nothing better when you meet people who say, okay, I want to do this. Yeah. I've got an idea. 'Cause for me, an idea is the most beautiful thing. It's like a gift that's been given to you. The seeing of an idea, the feeling of, that could happen. And then obviously the challenge of then actually
making it happen.
Yeah. I have a habit, as you well know, of calling people out and saying, all right, okay, let's see, what can we do about that? How could I help you with that? Or how could you actually help me? So that's when I called you out because I was looking to put a journal together. I was obviously extremely aware of the power of journaling. Let's just quickly talk about that. Why is journaling, do you think, so important for anybody who wants to improve their life?
Couple of things. So again, it's a personal thing. Everyone's different with things like journaling. But the thing for me about the journal that made the biggest difference was two things. One, it was a daily discipline. It was something I was doing every single day. And that the way that journaling was structured around set your intentions in the morning, and by setting your intentions in the morning, they're in your mind all day to make sure that they happen. So that was the first thing. But also, and the absolutely colossal part of it, is looking back. So I look back every week about what my last week has been, and it reminds me of the things I've learned. I look at what I've succeeded at. some of the amazing things that have happened, and that's great from a weekly basis. And then every 6 months as a journal runs out, or every 4 months as a journal runs out, you're looking at, well, how far have I come in that 4 months?
Yes.
And you're feeling, as you're doing the sort of the daily work on yourself, you're thinking, I'm not really getting anywhere here. And then you look at where you were 4 months ago and what you were writing 4 months ago, and you're thinking, wow, that's a huge leap. So you don't see those tiny incremental changes. But when you look back on them, you see them. And I recently hit 1,000 days of journaling. So I went back and I looked at those very first ones I wrote when I first started following my 365.
Yeah, I think, as you well know, reflection is such an important part of moving forwards. Not to necessarily overanalyze, but just to look, what's going well, what needs work. But I contacted you and I said, okay, would you help me with something, which was the putting of a journal together. Yeah. What was your initial thoughts when I contacted you about that?
I'm too busy.
Yeah, but it wasn't the fact that you were too busy. What was it that really came up?
It was fear of failure. What if I can't do this? What if I'm not good enough?
Yeah.
And all of those, the duck basically was there. I mean, it was genuinely, this was just, it's like sat in your lap opportunity. Here you go.
So why did you then say yes to it? Why not just let that fear got in the way?
Because I knew I'd be an idiot if I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Because, frankly, I was flattered.
Yeah.
To be asked, why has he picked me out of the thousands of people that you know who must be better writers than me? And it was something I knew I wanted to do. So I knew that to not do it, to turn down an opportunity like that would be foolish.
Yeah.
And of course, from where that took me, there's also that now in my mind, my attitude to opportunities has completely changed, because I know if an opportunity comes my way that fits with where I want to go and what my purpose is, never turn it down.
So
grab it and figure it out later.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things Richard Branson famously says. If someone offers you an opportunity, just say yes and then figure it out afterwards.
Yeah.
So what else has happened? I mean, obviously that journal has come out now. There's thousands of people that use that journal and it's massively impacted their lives. How does that make you feel, seeing people using this journal, filling it in? What does that do for you?
Blown away. Blown away. Does that, again, something you've talked about a lot around the desire to make a difference that we all have. That is something tangible I can look at.
Yeah.
When someone posts in the community or talks about what the journal has done for them, I'm able to see that I've made a difference for them. I've enabled them to have a tool that helps them and makes a change.
So what is the purpose of your life now? Because obviously when I'm coaching people in my 365, it is a challenging question to ask people, what's the meaning of your life? What are you here to do? Because often people really don't know, but I think deep down they do know. They've just never been asked the question, or they're scared or whatever. Yeah. But we're going to get to the root of that with people, especially if I'm going to work with them. Yeah. So what is the purpose of your life now?
The purpose of my life now is to tell the story and to release greatness in inspiring people.
So how are you doing that? Because I know you've started your own business now, which is called, what's it called?
So the business is called Creative Words. I describe myself as a content alchemist. So I am transforming material into content gold. And when I describe to people what I do, I call myself the gift of time. So I'm working primarily with small businesses, small and medium-sized enterprises. Often they are sole traders, or there's a single person or two people in the business, and they're very time poor. They know that content is really important, fresh content all the time. Being able to sort of step out and have a voice and say something is really, really important. But there isn't the time to do it. So what Creative Words offers them is content solutions. So it's not just about writing, and I am a writer, I do a lot of writing for people, but it's about managing the process. It's about finding the other people in that process that they need. So if, for example, you wanted to produce an ebook, it's not just about writing the great words, it's about finding a designer, it's about getting it put together, it's about loading it to a website. A copywriter will write it, lob that back to you as the business owner, and you're sitting with this beautiful crafted words going, well, I still haven't got time to do anything with this. So it still doesn't happen, it sits in an inbox. And what I'm doing is, the gift of time is that the next time you have to look at that ebook, it's loaded on your website with a squeeze page set up, and you don't have to worry. All you have to do is check that you're happy with it, and we're good to go.
Yeah.
And that's the concept. And that's why it's about releasing greatness. Because if you're not worrying about getting the ebook out there, you're focusing on what you are fantastic as a business owner.
Yeah, and there are more and more people that need that service.
Yeah.
And obviously that's something, again, you've helped me with, because it's not just about the fact of the journal.
Yeah.
The journal led to other things, and obviously it led to the weight loss program that we redid, which is now the My 365 Weight Loss Challenge, which you helped me put together. So you've almost been rewarded as a consequence of putting yourself out there, that the universe has paid you back.
Yeah.
And now, of course, which I don't mind sharing with people, you're working with me on this book, which is about leadership. And again, I couldn't do this without you. And I think all people should realise, look, it's very hard in life to do anything on your own. And life is so much sweeter when you find people to go on this journey of achieving anything in life. Now, for those of us that are watching this on YouTube, you'll see a picture behind us. But for those of you that are listening to this, you won't be able to see the picture. But tell us what that picture says behind, please, Kate.
It says, a great life doesn't happen by chance, it happens by design.
Yeah.
And you've got quite a few of these posts, and I picked that was the one that I wanted.
Yes.
Because we're talking about how coaching can help. But what coaching has done is given me that as an understanding.
Yeah.
That I can design my life. I've always wanted to be a writer. I just sat and waited for it to come to me.
Yes.
And guess what? It didn't. It wasn't until I went out and got it. At various different points in my life, I went out and got it. And that was when things made a difference.
I think the thing that would be great just to explore a little bit with the whole design process is, if you wanted, like this house, someone designed it. They've only designed this house once. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, this house does need some help. In fact, the other day, something just fell off. But most houses that are built, they're built to last, right? But we don't work like that. The design process isn't like, it's like work-life balance. There's no such thing. It's balancing and designing. That's really what this is about, isn't it? And what have you learned about what most people need to do in order to create the life they want through the designing process?
Well, let's use the house as an analogy. Designing goes in kind of macro to micro. So if you think about a house, so yes, someone designed the house once, and they'll have done a sort of a blueprint of the basic design. And then someone else will have designed the interior, which is a more detailed design. And then you, having moved in, are now putting your design on the house.
Yeah.
And when you've lived here for a while, you'll put your design on it again, and you'll say, actually, I don't quite like this colour. Or these curtains don't work anymore. I'm bored with these curtains, and you'll change them. So even with a house,
can you read my mind? Go on, sorry, just thinking about curtains. But that's
yes. Okay. Stop thinking about curtains.
Yes.
Focus, Pete. Focus.
Focus.
But yes, so even with a house, designing is a constant process. Mm-hmm. And as you evolve and as you live in your house or your life more, it changes. And that happened with the business. I set a business up to be a writer. And you, as my coach, were saying, Kate, you're so much more than a writer. And I was busy not listening to that because I wasn't ready to hear it. And then as people started to come to me and I started to see the challenges that people were having as business owners, that was when Content Alchemy sort of landed. And it was about 3 months afterwards, and I realised that actually that total solution is really what people want. So that was designing it more and designing it more. And I have never stopped, from a personal development point of view, designing and designing and designing. Yeah. And it keeps happening. It happened last week with confidence. So confidence was one of the very first masterclasses we put together. And the very first idea with confidence is confidence about getting yourself to do the things you say you need to do, even if you don't feel like it. Mm-hmm. And I've been hearing that for 3 years. And you said it on a podcast last week, and it landed in a totally different way. And it shifted my thinking because I had this predefined idea about what confidence was. And in fact, it's a different thing. And that shift happened. So now I'm designing again around doing the things I want to do even when I don't feel like them, because now I've got a different perspective and a different way of looking at what it means to do those things. And that happens, I would think, 99.9% of the time, something is happening and something is shifting for me as a result of working on myself, and as a result of working on my 365, and as a result of seeing what other people are doing. Watch a video and someone will say something in a different way.
Yes. Or
they've heard something on a broadcast, or they've seen it in the masterclass, and they just see it differently, and it goes ping.
That's really profound. What would you say to people who are considering coaching?
I think you've got to have an extremely good reason not to do it.
I thought you were going to say you need to have an extremely good coach.
You've always got to have a good coach, but you've got to have a really good reason not to do it. Why would you not want to work on yourself? And not enough time is not a good reason not to do it.
Yeah.
That's a terrible excuse to make.
Yes.
I can't remember who it is who says it, but someone in the personal development space says, if it's important enough, you'll do it, and if it isn't important enough, you'll find an excuse. And finding this thing about excuses, which is something that we've covered a few times in coaching, is a massive area that people need to look at. But what coaching does is it gives you someone outside your circle of friends, because they've got a reason to not want you to change, because they're comfortable with who you are, because it defines who they are as well.
Yes.
So if you start talking to them about changing, all my friends, if I talked about leaving my job and starting a business, would have been talking about,
yes,
oh no, it's too much risk. And I've still got friends who do that, who talk about it being just very risky and, what's your fallback position the whole time? I've got no safety net.
Yes.
Because if I had a safety net, I'd use it. So what coaching does is it pushes you to do those things, to take those risks, to recognise who you are and who you are meant to be, so that you go and do those things.
So you talk about your people who you know, if you talk to them about what you were doing, they would throw maybe 100 reasons as to why you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Why is it so important to surround yourself with people with similar goals and dreams and ambitions as yourself? So obviously I'm referring to the community of My 365. Tell me a little bit about that. Why being around people like that is such a powerful acquisition? There's
so many reasons. I've got friends who understand where I'm coming from in a way that I don't elsewhere, because I share much more honestly in that group than anywhere else. There are things that I was telling them months, years before I told anybody else about my desire and my burning desire to be a writer, all of those things. So that's the first thing, is that I've made really strong friends. There are other people who run their own businesses who I can just tap into and say, this is happening to me, what would you do? Can you give me an experience from your perspective? Because some of them are further ahead in their journey. There are now people in that community who are reaching out to me who want to start their businesses, not because they want to use my business, but because they know I've done it and they want to know what that was like. So there's that, there's learning, there's the ability to be able to, when something happens, either a great thing or a challenge, to be able to express that challenge. And it's so comforting when someone just says, God, that sounds just like me. I do that. And you think, you know what? I'm not the only person who just beats myself up, who gets really worked up about certain things.
So tell me, what's been your biggest achievement, do you think, since being a part of My 365?
The biggest single thing, the thing that was most important to me, was that overcoming cancer. That making that step and making that break.
Yeah.
So that was a very big thing for me. But it's too much to mention, because there's something every single week.
Yeah.
The journal talks about what amazing things have happened this week, and there's always something. There's loads to write the whole time. I've discovered so many things about myself. I've discovered how much stronger I am than I ever believed, partly by reflecting back.
Yes.
I've come through so many things that I never thought about. I lost my father, I had cancer, I was bullied at work, I've had all those sorts of challenges.
Yeah, you were overweight.
I was overweight, I hated my view, hated how I looked in the mirror. And that wasn't just about weight, that was about hating the person I was. And all of that I've come through. Some of it quickly, some of it slowly.
I think it is truly a great journey up until this point, but are you believing that the best is yet to come?
Well, the best is always yet to come. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow?
Yes.
Or next week? And look, here
Who
I am
knows who's
doing a
going to
podcast.
listen to this,
Yeah.
and how many people will be inspired by your story? Kate,
Millions.
I think it would be great. Millions, absolutely.
That's what I hope.
How can people find out about you and follow you?
So the business is called Creative Words. The website is creativewords.cc, and I have a Facebook page as well, which is Content Alchemy. Is the
Content Alchemy, and the website again
is www.creativewords.cc.
Yeah, and people should definitely go and check that out. There's some great stuff
Yeah.
on there. When you speak to people like Kate, I'm sure you can really appreciate just how powerful coaching is, whether you've had it before or whether you've never had it before. It really doesn't matter. The role of a coach is to help someone go from where they are to where they want to be. Sometimes they don't even know where they want to be. They know where they don't want to be. It doesn't matter. Coaching can be the difference that makes the difference. If you want to find out about the #1 coaching opportunity in the world, go to mi365elite.me. That's mi365elite.me, and just see. It's my personal invitation for you to see what coaching can do for you. Kate, it's an absolute privilege to sit here and talk to you in this way, and I'm excited to see just how much more of a great life we can design. Thank you for watching. If you're watching this on iTunes, please make a comment, or Spotify, wherever. Share it, put it out there, and let's share great, real stories like Kate's story. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time for another My 365 podcast.